Welcome to episode 13 of Riff Ram Review right here on 88.7 KTCU The Choice. I'm Zion Trammell here with Ian Napetian and Seth Dowdle. Boys, we are back. Had a week off for Thanksgiving. How was y'all's Thanksgiving? Was it good?
It was great. Went home, back to the Bay Area. That's where I'm from. So, yeah, it was really nice. Went home, just really relaxed, saw some family, hung out a little bit. Nice to have the week off, you know, to not have school, but definitely miss being back here with you boys. So, happy to be back for episode 13.
13 episodes. Can we believe it, boys? Yeah, great Thanksgiving. Good to have a week off, as Ian just said. Kind of weird. Feel kind of out of the groove. Haven't done this in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But looking forward to get right back on the horse. We got a lot to talk about. TCU football, you know, NFL's been going on. The college football playoff is around the corner. TCU basketball is in full swing. And then we got some really fun segments in the second hour that I know that we all are looking forward to sharing with y'all. So it's going to be a really, really fun show.
Yeah, I'm excited. But Seth, you weren't going to mention something that happened during Thanksgiving break with you. I know maybe you feel like you weren't going to mention it, but you know what? I'll do the honors. So our boy Seth, over Thanksgiving break, got engaged.
Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I'll give myself.
Oh my goodness!
Seth. I'll give myself a round of applause.
Yes,
congrats, man.
Thank y'all. Very happy. Wonderful gal, and can't wait to marry her.
Yeah, we're very excited for you. Very happy.
Yep.
Can't wait for the wedding.
Yes.
Should be fun.
That'll be a lot of fun.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Just congratulate Seth on that. And let's get right into it. So we're going to talk about TCU football, probably for the last time in a little bit, at least. Because it's been a pretty disappointing season. They ended their season losing 69-45 at the hands of the Oklahoma Sooners. They miss out on a bowl game 1 year removed from making the national championship. It's also the second year in a row where they've allowed 60-plus points in the final game of the season. Not ideal.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. A lot of questions going into the offseason for your good old Horned Froggies. And you know, we're, 4 or 5 days removed from the conclusion of the season, and nothing. Radio silence out of the football camp. I've heard, zero news.
Yeah,
I've heard a ton of news from other schools, not even a leak of someone transferring out. That's what just kind of astounding given the season that TCU just had. That'll probably come at some point in the near future. Obviously, the transfer portal window opens a week from now, but... And also another thing that I think a lot of us were expecting to hear was maybe some coaching moves, and that hasn't happened yet. And the longer we get from that game, the more likely I feel like it's not happening.
Yeah, exactly. And right, I feel like everybody was, obviously, Joe Gillespie, the defensive coordinator, and Kendall Browse, the offensive coordinator for the Horned Frogs. I mean, those guys are on the hot seat, at least in the perspective of the fans looking in, right? We don't know exactly what Sonny is thinking about where the future of the program that he wants to take this team toward. But I totally agree, Seth. I feel like every day that we don't hear about this, or at least hear anything at the very least, just a smidge here or there, it leads me to think that we're just not going to make a change. And I'm fine maybe keeping one of the two, but I don't. Something needs to change. This team was 5-7. Certain games that we won looked a lot prettier than they really were. But yeah, certainly things need to change. And again, I feel like every day that we don't hear something, it just kind of, it's a little disheartening to hear that we're not making any moves yet.
Yeah, I think it's one thing for an organization to look at themselves and, always point fingers constantly when sometimes it's just like a player issue. You just don't have the talent and, they move too many pieces too quickly. It's another thing to kind of keep these coaches or keep these pieces in place for too long. And that's something that the Cowboys ran into, a big problem here. And I don't want the same thing to happen. And so, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And I think the entire coaching staff is probably looking at themselves I might be in trouble, or what do I need to do to help improve this team next season? So, yeah, this season just felt like a huge mess. Whereas last year, everything was so
vibrant,
cohesive,
happy.
Yeah, vibrant. Yeah, cohesive.
The vibes were great.
Yeah, the coaching staff was doing a great job preparing the guys, and the leadership was there, and it just everything went in the complete opposite direction. And that's not what you want from a program that wants to continuously be successful like they were about a decade ago.
Yeah, it's kind of, and you said it when you mentioned Gillespie and the defense giving up 60-plus points. Not just 60-plus points, Zion, 65-plus points, which is marginally worse. But once you're getting to the 60-point range, it's like, what does it matter at that point? But that's simply, not even from a fan being a grouchy, armchair quarterback, that is simply unacceptable. And I know this is the Big 12, and points and defense is optional in the Big 12, and that's been the reputation that this league has had for a long time. But that's just not what the 3-3-5 defense is designed to do, is to prevent explosive plays. Mm-hmm. And in that Oklahoma game, that was all that there were. It felt like everything was, the top was being taken off the defense, and there's 8 guys back there that are meant to prevent that from happening when you're only rushed three guys, routinely. So that's I think if of the 2 coordinators, obviously you can point at Briles' shortcomings in the red zone with the offense, but the offense did put up points. Yeah. And if you're going to defend him, like I imagine Sonny Dykes probably will, and keep him, is we put up points. Yeah. And, I bet you, us 3, if we were able to put up a document with you did put up points, but some were meaningless in certain situations and whatnot. But the defense was routinely an issue, and it went all the way back to the Colorado game.
Yeah, and with the defense, again, I'm right there with you, Seth, actually. The defense struggled to make adjustments throughout the entire season. I think there was one game, I want to say Texas Tech was the one game that I saw the team actually make adjustments both offensively and defensively and actually make a change at halftime. But the defense was consistently frustrating to work with and frustrating to see. And again, if you're going to defend Kendall Briles' offense, you can also point to the fact that Chandler Morris got hurt and you had to, hurry and figure out what you're going to do with Josh Hoover, right? And that might just be Kendall Briles' saving grace in this whole season, is that he can lean on and kind of point to that and say, hey, I didn't have the quarterback for the quarterback that I thought I was going to have for the full season, so half of the season was already going to be real tough, right? I'd be curious to see what this conversation would have been like if Morris stayed healthy and remained QB1 all season, and and we still got to this point, but I think that's probably Kendall Briles' really only saving grace, is that, and that the offense continuously put up points.
Also, this is just another of the many shortcomings this season that could have been forecasted. I feel like it is malpractice to enter a season in. I'm not saying I didn't trust Josh Hoover to begin the season, but he was an inexperienced guy who had never started a game, right? To enter the season with your backup quarterback being that, with a guy like Chandler Morris, who I don't think I've ever watched a Chandler Morris season where he has not hurt himself, where he's not gotten hurt.
It's a part of his game that
it just happens.
Yeah.
And it happened again this year. Obviously, it happened last year. It happened in the brief time he spent in 21 after that miraculous Baylor game. Got hurt the next game. So to enter the season with a quarterback who I don't like calling people injury prone, but he's a little injury prone.
He is injury prone.
With a guy, and obviously Josh Hoover, exceeded my expectations, but that felt like a red flag when there were guys in the transfer portal that might not have made the biggest difference, as a starter, but, had experience and could have, led a team through some dark times, just like TCU had a lot of this season.
Yeah, I feel with this team, another thing that's just really frustrating about this season that you couldn't really point to is the consistency. There wasn't any consistency among really any facets of this team, especially when Hoover came in and played against BYU. Yes, I'd say of any game of the season, the game where you have a new quarterback can either be your worst game of the year or it could be your best game because so much changes, right, within that locker room, within those schemes and things like that, right? But it just didn't feel like there was a lot of consistency this season. I don't know why I said weekend. This whole season felt like there were problems all across the board, and whether it was discipline penalties or red zone inefficiency or defensive miscues and turnovers, whenever we'd fix one hole, another hole would pop up, and we wouldn't really know how to combat that. And it's frustrating because if you have so many problems, but you can't get, if you can't figure them all out at once or, within a season, you're going to really have some trouble, and that's what TCU ran into this year.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring this up because we talked about Hoover and Chandler Morris and kind of the debate of the quarterback position next year. Did Josh Hoover do enough to earn the starting quarterback job next season, or do they look at the transfer portal with KJ Jefferson, Blake Shapen from Baylor, maybe Malik Murphy might transfer from Texas, maybe? Are those? Would you look at those options, or do you feel like Josh Hoover could be our guy for next season?
I think you just got to look at them, do your due diligence, and if one of them wants to come here, I've always been of the opinion that a good, healthy quarterback battle is not a bad thing, and if you can have that and someone wins out, if you have two good options, obviously there's the saying that if you have two quarterbacks, you have none, but if you can bring in someone maybe with some experience, like a KJ Jefferson who started a lot of games for Arkansas and has been pretty successful, or what was the other name you mentioned there, Zion?
Blake Shapen.
Yeah, Blake Shapen. He won the Big 12 with Baylor 2 years ago. I don't think Blake Shapen will transfer here, just FYI, but a guy like him, sort of with experience. I think you do. I think you do your due diligence. Due diligence. There you go.
Yeah, I agree. I think you need to take a look and kind of scope out what are some of the possibilities. If I'm being honest, I think Hoover has done enough to point to him being the starter. I don't want to speak for everyone here, but I feel that Chandler Morris is closer to transferring than becoming the starter again. That's just me. I feel that Josh Hoover has won the team over with what he's been given, coming into the scenario of the season when it, right in the middle of the season as the backup, and kind of proving yourself and sticking in there during some of those hard times. And it's not to put anything bad on Chandler Morris's name or tab him in a negative light, but to me, this is Josh Hoover's team now. Chandler Morris has had his chances. He's been put in, he's won the starting job 3 different times, and he's never finished the season. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
I agree. I think, Chandler did a good job, and if he does transfer, wish him nothing but the best. Don't want to speculate. I agree, though. I think he probably will. It's just hard to go from Chandler, then, now Josh's our quarterback, and then, actually, we're going back to Chandler. Yeah. It's just a lot to keep going back and forth. At that point, if you're going to replace Josh, you just go with a new quarterback, a new face. You don't want to go back to a guy that's been hurt multiple times. And then you almost have to anticipate that, he's probably going to get hurt again, so you need to have backup options. It's just too much. And, it's unfortunate how that situation played out. But, I think Josh could be the guy next year. I think he had a really... He really showed a lot of flashes this season and took a lot of accountability and ownership, and really liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, and also just briefly going back to Chandler Morris, this might be a little blunt, but I don't think Chandler Morris has anything left in the tank to show that he hasn't done already. Whereas Hoover, you've only seen a little bit of the guy, and from what we've seen, he looks really sharp in certain areas, and there's a lot of room for improvement in other areas as well. But if you go back to Morris, again, I don't really know what else he can offer this team that we haven't seen yet. And then, again, if you go back to Morris with Hoover still here in this program, what does that do mentally for the quarterbacks? They've already gone through this song and dance competing against each other, right? What does that do, to Hoover, someone like Hoover as a young quarterback still trying to find his way? So a lot to think about for this coaching staff.
Yeah, and I will say this just to, kind of put a bright spot on this and not be all negative. I think there is some bright spots on this team, and I think they're going to look at themselves, and I think they should hit the transfer portal hard. Teams have found a lot of success with that, and hopefully you just, with the new Big 12, you're motivated to really get back on track and maybe make that 12-team playoff, because now moving forward there's going to be more opportunities now with 12 teams to get in the playoff. Not saying that that's going to happen next year. It could, but there are some things to like out of this season. Imani Bailey had a tremendous year. There's some really good consistency from Jared Wiley.
Yeah.
He's
your guy, man.
We're gonna miss him. We're gonna miss him.
Yeah, I know he's not going to be back next year, but just wanted to mention some bright spots as well, and best of luck to the guys that are moving on to the draft or the transfer portal or whatever.
Yeah, and you mentioned it with the 12-team playoff. I mean, and also this league is going to be it's 16 teams now next year. Oh my gosh.
Big 12,
plus
4.
Hey, Big 10 has 18, I just don't even know where to start. But there's a lot of teams where you look and it's like, well, they could either be really good or they could be like a TCU in 5 and 7. It's going to be wide open, right? Yep. And so therefore, it's going to be a really fun league. It's going to be kind of a frustrating league to watch. I feel like it's going to be a league where there's not going to be like one elite team, just a lot of good teams, and that's what's going to make it fun. But also what makes a opportunity for a school like TCU to go on a run, win the conference, make the playoff, maybe win a game. And that's the goal in the 12-team playoff. It's a lot harder to win a national championship now, but it's a lot easier to make it to the playoff.
Yeah, and with the new Big 12 being so new, completely different landscape, it allows TCU to say, hey, we're going to take advantage of this and emerge ourselves as the front runners in this conference. This is our chance. This is TCU's chance to say, hey, some teams left, some teams joined. This is our time to take control. So I'm curious to see what we do next year.
Yeah. Got to make changes, though, and got to take advantage of this offseason if they want to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds. We're going to take a break, and coming up next, we're going to be talking about two teams that are doing much better for TCU. That's our men's and women's basketball team right here on Riff Ram Review on 88.7 The Choice.